Thanks a lot, Yasmin. Well, just beginning his second year as mayor of Honolulu, Peter Carlisle is saying the city's $5 billion rail project is the only way to manage Oahu's future growth. In his State of the City address, the mayor said the development would keep the country and also offer Oahu's west side alternatives to the growing traffic problems. Now, Carlisle's political opponents were quick to criticize what they see as a misrepresentation of the project, pointing to the city's need to waive the debt ceiling to allow for rail financing to go forward. And joining us this morning is Mayor Peter Carlisle with more of that. Good morning, Mayor.
Good morning.
Thank
Aloha.
You so much for joining us.
It's nice to be here bright and early.
So as you know, there's a chorus of criticism over the administration's decision.
What a surprise. During a campaign season, my opponents are making lots of noise. I'm shocked.
One of the people is Budget Chair Ann Kobayashi. She said that in regards to waiving of the debt ceiling, she said that, the council was not informed and that it just wasn't cool, as she said. So what's your response to that?
Ann is an opponent of rail. Ben's an opponent of rail. So you expect this kind of noise from these people. And frankly, if you take a look at our future and you want to keep our neighborhoods sensibly in a path towards sustainable growth, you have to have rail. I mean, it's just that plain and simple. Now, the other thing I want to talk about this concern that they have about raising the debt ceiling. This isn't going to take place until 2014. So it's not like there's not plenty of time for this particular news to have gotten to them. And if they had looked at their, essentially the budget figures, then they would have figured it out just like the press did. So
but the question is, why weren't they informed? And one of your opponents, Kurt Caldwell, is talking about this. So let's just listen to some of his sound from yesterday.
By not doing it in the bright light of day, you create mistrust, you create fear, and that sets the project back.
You have said, Mayor, from day one that the city needs to be transparent, and that is one of your goals as mayor.
Absolutely true.
So why not be transparent about
this? You can do that. I mean, that's absolutely correct. There is no reason why you can't do that. And essentially, we're trying to do it to the greatest extent humanly possible. And because it's absolutely true. The people deserve the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And essentially,
it sounds like you're sticking to your speech from
exactly
yesterday.
Correct. That's part of the speech from yesterday. But the point of the matter is that we can do a better job of telling people about what is going right about rail and what those issues are, and we need to be able to do that. And we haven't done a good job of that. I mean, if the criticism is that we could do a better job about telling people what the purpose of rail is, what it could do, and essentially how it affects our future. That's certainly something we can do better.
Your other opponent, former Governor Ben Cayetano, he is clearly anti-rail, talks about this transparency and the information coming out in terms of public relations. So let's listen to his sound, and you can respond to it after that.
Over $5 million for PR? Give me a break. I know of no project in the history of the state that has had that kind of publicity.
So you have stressed being fiscally responsible.
Correct.
Is it being fiscally responsible to spend money on public relations?
You're required to do that by essentially by to get to ourselves to the point where we're going to get a full funding agreement. We have to be able to make sure that the community is on board with this. Frankly, that's one thing that Ben hasn't talked about, is that if he gets elected, you can pretty much kiss the $1.55 billion away, because no federal government in their right mind is going to sit there and give money to somebody who's already said he's going to take the money that's been raised for rail and use it for other purposes. Mm-hmm. Why would they give us $1.55 billion for him to not use for a rail system when that's what it's for? So he is basically death to us getting any money from the federal government, which is going to mean that pushing this down the line, again, is going to cost future generations much, much more, and no likelihood of federal funds.
Well, what do you make of Schopel's endorsement of Kurt Caldwell?
Schopel endorsement always is against me. It's never once got in the way of anything. I didn't go to them. I didn't want their endorsement.
You didn't even want to try?
Not in the slightest. Frankly, what they did, if you remember that big body commercial that they did with police officers looking like that, it was an embarrassment to the law enforcement community. And anybody who's willing to embarrass, this is very close to my heart, the law enforcement community like that, I don't want to have any part to do with them.
We asked some of our viewers for questions, and we actually got some really interesting questions, and we'd like to put it up on the screen right now. This question is from Jacqueline Hedges, and she wonders, What is being done about the horrible and unsanitary public toilets in Waikiki? If indeed tourism is a primary consideration, then public facilities should reflect that concern. What can you tell to Jacqueline?
It takes almost no time whatsoever for people who are sandy and coming in from the ocean to make a mess of that particular bathroom. People go there regularly. There's a schedule for them to do it. It's far more than we've got in any other bathrooms. But you can't have somebody there essentially living in the bathroom, cleaning it up after everybody, because it's just too expensive. But it's absolutely true. At times it doesn't look particularly attractive. But the reason for that is essentially the people who use it, which are so many of them, are usually covered with all sorts of stuff from the ocean and from the sand. So it's something that we look into, and it's actually the maintenance schedule has been increased. But it can't be 24 hours a day.
In your speech yesterday, you talked about being more transparent and giving the public more information. What specifically will you do to accomplish that goal?
Well, I think the first thing you have to do is to work with HART to make sure that they're doing everything that people expect them to do to oversee the project. And the other thing that you need to make absolutely certain on is that we're doing the same thing. We need to be able to bring in all of the people who've got those contracts and say, hey, look, if you're expecting change orders galore, you've got another thought coming. We're going to have we should have a very specific method of dealing with change orders. If there's going to be shoddy workmanship, we're going to be looking at, you better be overseeing the people that you are basically, who are working for you. We're going to make that absolutely clear to everybody who's got a contract, and say, we're going to be looking over your shoulders, and if you're not complying with this stuff and we've got problems with you, once this section of the rail is built, like every other place that's had a transportation system like that, there's more spurs later on. This isn't going to bode well for your future work on future projects.
Well, we are out of time, but how would you grade yourself right now as you're doing as mayor?
I don't think that's for me to do. I think that's for the people to do.
All right. Great answer. Thank you so much. Peter Carlisle, I appreciate you being here this morning. And don't forget, you can see this interview again by heading to the morning section of our website, KITV.com. It is 6:16.